talking about a play or a singer-songwriter, ballet or opera, these are all things that are story-based generally. And for a story to work, the audience has to identify with the main character powerfully. The audience has to become the main character and see the world through that person's perspective. And if you are a social scientist and you think about that process, you would call that empathy. And empathy is something of great interest to policymakers because they see the lack of empathy or the threats to empathy as a significant challenge to our society. And if you further think about sharing the experience of the performing arts in a communal space, let's say you're in a theater with 800 people, you come away from that experience having shared that often powerful emotional connection that you have to that hero or that main character, that sense of empathy. You've shared that with a community, and that tends to reinforce the idea that you are a member of a community and you're a member of a group. And that can contribute to something that I think might be called social cohesion. And so you can see just in a few minutes of me speaking that I have begun to reframe the performing arts from being something that is not important to something, especially to a policymaker, to something that is actually centrally important. And so what I found so interesting, Jasper, in your remarks is that you are framing the way you're observing cultural expression, whether it's at the airport that is a museum or other examples, that there is a sense, or the way you talked about Montreal, that culture is in fact built into the DNA of everything that we're doing as human beings in society. So I tend to think about the performing arts in that way, and I think with respect to some things we've been talking about how a national institution can respond in a city, a capital city. One of the things I guess I would say that I'm jealous of, and I also feel we share at the National Arts Centre with the Ottawa Art Gallery, is that we have a new building. And that in both cases, the building, ours is a renovated building. It's not profoundly different as in this case. But our architecture has allowed us to change as an institution. So what I would say is that we have a great advantage of being really at the National Arts Centre, really in the heart of the city, facing War Memorial, facing Parliament buildings, etc. And one of the bravest decisions I think we made might seem very trivial, but we put a coffee shop on that corner. You would never believe how much resistance we had within the institution to doing that. There was a sense that it was off brand, why would we do such a thing? People wouldn't come. And in fact, it's on brand, because what we're talking about when we put a coffee shop inside a glass window at our front door, and we've made all the Wi-Fi free, and we've put plugs everywhere for laptops. We're basically saying to a community of what you would call, I guess, Gen Xers, this is your new home. This is where you should hang out because it's warm, there's free Wi-Fi, you can plug in there's a table, you can just spend your day here if you want. And a lot of people have taken the several months after we opened to figure that out, and it's now a crowded place every day. So in a sense, we're trying to become a convener in the heart of the city and explode a bit the idea of being a aloof national cultural institution. In a sense, it's trying to be a living room, it's trying to be a public square, it's trying to be a safe space. So one of the things I admire about the Ottawa Art Gallery is the washrooms. It's very thoughtful that they have gender-neutral washrooms. And we had a similar discussion within the National Arts Centre, and I think we took a half step. We have some universal washrooms. And I noticed that the signage that is used here is the same signage we adopted, which is one which was very thoughtful. It's simply a picture of a toilet. So we're saying to people, we're not going to make a judgment about who you need to be to come into this room, but inside this room is a toilet. And that kind of thinking, which is creating a safe space for people, that I'm not going to be judged when I go into a room, is one of the small things an institution can do. So I do think that architecture and design is a way that you signal to a community that warm welcome. In fact, one of the museums in the city, the National Gallery of Canada, has really based its new thinking on the idea of a warm and generous welcome. Now, for those of you in the crowd who've gone to the National Gallery, I'm a great admirer of it. I wouldn't have said warm and generous was the way I would describe it. But the new museum director, Sasha Suda, is determined to reposition it. So there's architecture and there's also the institutional posture that gets communicated by the leadership. So when we talk about the thing as small as the sign for a toilet, or opening your opening hours, or your free admission, these are beyond architecture. So I think those things can work to help affect the local community. I'll stop talking. I could go on forever, but a fascinating conversation. Thank you, Mark, for including me.
Thank you, Visser. So I'll turn to Nicole next, and I'm wondering, are there particular ways in which the arts community as a sector can respond to the kind of challenges and provocations that Jasper set out and fuel a more creative future in Ottawa and in the region?
Yes, absolutely. And thank goodness for that. I also come from the performing arts world, like Christopher, but most recently over the last 4 months at the Ottawa Arts Council, and a big part of what we do there is advocacy. And when I came into the position, one of the most impressive things that I experienced was the work that the Ottawa Cultural Alliance has been doing in the community in order to help shape the city's cultural plan. And this is the Ottawa Cultural Alliance, for those that aren't familiar, encompasses leaders from the museum community, the heritage community, the arts advocacy community, all together working to create resources that can act as guidelines for the city to move forward and help shape their future cultural plan. And one of the things that I learned is how valuable it is to have that kind of a cultural alliance, how valuable it is for the members of the community, the arts community, or arts organizations, small and large, and independent artists, to know that this alliance is available to them as a resource to speak and learn more about the different ways that we can help promote the arts and how it actually can eventually become a part of policy so that culture can be integrated into strategic and operational planning at the city level. I think that would be a beautiful thing to happen. It's something that we certainly suggested, and I think that would help address some of the challenges that we see. I think in the form of, I'll just check my notes here, in the form of opportunities, it speaks a little bit to what Jasper was talking about, which really resonated with me as well, is how important moving forward it is for art to integrate itself into social infrastructure. How there's a wonderful, remarkable work that the Ottawa Art Gallery is doing that they launched a few weeks ago with the Ottawa Hospital and the Ottawa Symphony, while they're bridging a gap between music and art and healthcare, and bringing music and art into the hospitals in order to help shape the environment that is tragic and stressful for the individuals that are working and healing there. And I think moving forward, that is an opportunity that we can seize, that art can start infusing itself into social infrastructure, from education to healthcare to transportation, as we see with the LRT. I think we've got a lot more work to do, but I think it's an important step moving forward that we should be paying attention to.
Thanks so much, Nicole. We spent a bit more time on it this morning, but it definitely came up in Jasper's presentation about the changing role that technology is playing on the cultural sector and the impact it's having. And so this is a question for Remco. Art Engine was promised in some ways as a technological fuse with creativity. But with the pervasiveness and shifts occurring in tech, what do you see as the evolving role of Art Engine as sort of an exemplar in some ways about this responsibility and relationship between technology and culture?
Yeah, thank you. It's actually part of a shift or a change organizationally that we're going through right now. In its origin, Art Engine has always looked at access to technology for artists and creatives, and skill building around those new and emerging technologies. But in an environment where technology is so pervasive and all our experiences are technologically mediated, is that, to what extent is that skill building still central to the value that we can offer? So we're shifting our focus actually from a focus on the technology per se to let's say meaning making or sense making of these technologies and their role in the social change and the ecological change and the technological change that we see around us. So the centering of artistic knowledge and of artistic communities in making sense of those changes, which for us is a shift in focus and moves from a focus on tools to a focus on people, I guess, and on the community. So we see the technology as our material and art actually as a method of thinking about these issues, and art as a way of type of literacy about the way the world is moving towards the future. We're taking a science fiction quote by Frederick Pohl that said, a good science fiction story should not predict the automobile, but the traffic jam. So we're trying to deal with the traffic jams rather than the automobile.
Thanks so much, Remco. I think as we think about our strategic plan, I'm hoping we'll anticipate both the automobile and the traffic jam and think about what role we can play in sort of sense making, as you said. Cozy, my question for you, I guess, would be, and you spoke a little bit about this already at the outset, but given the multiple lenses that you bring to this subject as sort of policy analyst, activist, advocate,